most retirement mistakes aren't made like a long time ago. They make probably 5 years before retirement. My name is Mamadou Bojang. I'm here with Tony Nui from Action Value. We're here to talk about federal benefits, things that matters to you as a federal government employee so that you can make a profound difference in your retirement. So Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Mom. I'm glad to be here. How are you?
Good. I'm super excited about this other topic. We're going to talk about retiring without income plan, right? We happen to believe that, retirement is not about one thing. It's not an event. It's a journey, right? So in that, there are key things that you want to make sure that you have planned for. But we do know that people retire on income. You hear me say this all the time, right? People don't retire on us, they retire on the income, right? So what do you think about, what do you see when federal government employees come to you about retirement, income-wise? What are some of the things that we talk to them about?
A lot of times, we have these first initial meetings. A lot of our federal government employees always say, you know what, I'm resigned to know that I have to spend less. And it breaks my heart. It really does. Because can you imagine somebody who's worked in the federal space or any space for 30, 40 years and had to say, you know what, when I go to the next chapter, should be a happy chapter, I got to do less.
Yeah.
I had to do less. And resigned to that. It truly does break my heart, right?
Yeah.
And so that gets back to have you done any planning to make sure that that is the case? Or are there other ways that you can kind of reposition or invest your funds so you can have the retirement of your dreams?
Yeah. You know what? You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, the way I look at it is even backwards, right? So all these years you've been working, you're saving money for your retirement. But then next you get to retirement, then you have to basically take a step back, right? Because you cannot do things that you need to do in retirement because of poor planning, right? So absolutely, we are here to definitely change that. We want to make sure that at least we can have a conversation with federal government employees. That way they can do the things that they want to do in retirement. Now, oftentimes, let's break this down. People come to us, federal government employees, let's say they make about, their GS something, let's say $185,000. But they come to us thinking that they're living on $885,000, right? Is that really the case?
Yeah, it is. The answer is no, right? They're really living on a little bit less, right? Because, most of these people, you're making $185,000, right? Well, what do you think about, what aren't you going to be paying in retirement, right? Well, you're no longer going to be contributing to the FIRST program. You're no longer going to be contributing to your TSP. You don't have to pay into Social Security. You're not paying in Medicare. So all that really comes out. So when we do the analysis for our clients about what are you really living off of? Boy, their eyes open oh, you're right. I'm not living off 185. I may be living off of 155,000.
Yeah,
right?
That's a great point, and I'm so glad that's why we're doing this analysis, because a lot of times they have this misconception that, I'm making $185,000, then therefore when I retire, my pension is going to be less, therefore I cannot retire. Well, it's funny, like you said, because while they're working, they're making $185,000, but when they get paid, they're contributing to the TSP. Well, that money gets out of their paycheck before it even goes to your bank account, so they don't even see that. So like you said, you also pay into Social Security, you pay into Medicare, and then there are certain things that they pay. So if you take that out and then do the math, they're living less. So I think a lot of them get relieved based on that, right? They feel like, oh, wow, all these years I've been doing this wrong, but now at least they see some kind of a light, in the tunnel to do that. Okay, I can definitely retire. So that's a great point. So typically when you do this analysis, what do you usually see for federal government employees? Is that a possibility that they could probably replace some of their income in retirement?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we find a lot of times is that, we talk a lot about this, right? Your numbers, your decision comes easier.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you mentioned this earlier. People feel like they can't retire. Well, it's not that you can't retire. You just don't know how to do it, right?
Yeah.
What is the most optimal strategy that we can really put into place to allow you to do that? And I think you talked about it, guaranteeing income, right? What kind of income do you have coming in? So as we do this analysis, right, we look at, hey, what income do we need to replace so we can, again, let you keep the same standard of living?
Yeah.
So obviously, a lot of these individuals are going to get a pension, right? Some get a special supplement. Then they're going to also get Social Security.
Yeah.
Right? And so as we do the analysis, we kind of look at it and say, okay, what is the gap that we need to solve for? As long as we can solve for that gap, what's the most efficient way to do it? What are some of the other investment options and strategies that are out there that are most beneficial to them so they can live a happy retirement that they choose?
Yeah. And it's funny because when we do this analysis, I remember one of your meetings, the client was looking at it like, well, you can do this. Can you do this? I'm like, yeah, you can do this because the reason why you don't know that because you don't work with a financial advisor who understands the federal space, right? But you mentioned something very important over here. It reminds me of one of our clients, Ellen, basically came to the office. I remember sitting with them, really thinking about retirement. For all these years, she grew up in a difficult, kind of like a challenging family. I mean, and because of that, you could see she never spends. She always basically works and then save money. She has saved a lot of money in her TSP account, but yet still she feels like she cannot retire because she doesn't know how to even start about retirement. And so she can clearly retire, but then she came to a retirement workshop and then be able to follow up a consultation with me. And, not only we're able to sit down with her, be able to show her like ways how to retire, but she finally retired. And then believe it or not, I think the joy for me is when she travels to, I think she was in Greece and in pictures, like, saying like, she's really enjoying retirement. It's funny, she came back and then we were having a review and she also told me about, hey, Mama, guess what? I said, what? It's like, we're going to go on a vacation again. So moments like that make you get joy because you feel like, okay, this is somebody who all along can retire, but they feel like they can retire. But because we're able to get to work for them and then be able to show them ways and then be able to enjoy that, I think that's just outstanding.
Yeah, and it brings up a client that we met recently, right? Literally, in our meetings, we always ask them, hey, when do you want to retire? A lot of people say, today if I could, right? And we say, hey, look, why not? Because I can't afford to. So after we do our analysis and we showed the client the strategy, literally, the client submitted his paperwork. He retired at the end of last year.
Yeah, amazing.
The relief, it's like the relief and the happiness and the joy and the weight that was lifted off his back.
Yeah.
I felt amazing.
Amazing. Going back to, good job on that. Going back to the income piece, when you're doing this analysis, right? Most people probably think that, oh, this is easy, especially other financial advisors that don't understand the federal space, right? So when we do this analysis, we collect their LES, which is their paycheck, leave and earnings statement, right? But is there one earnings statement in the federal agency? How many do you see?
There's definitely a lot, right?
Yeah.
The post office has their own, and whatever agency you have, there's like their own little flavor on how they present it.
And then they're all different. So you got to be able to understand this, be able to look at the earnings and leave statement and be able to extract the key data for us to be able to do this analysis, right? I often joke around to say, if the federal government can make one rule to bring all the LES, make them one, I think that would make our job a lot easier, right? Anyway, why not? Let's talk about their pension, right? So, federal government employees, when they retire, they're gonna get a pension, which they deserve it because they definitely serve our nation. By the way, if you're a federal employee, thank you for your service. Now, when they retire, though, I think there's misconception about pension. Obviously, pension does not gonna cover all of the income that they're making now, and some people feel like pension is not taxed and all that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception in terms of their pension is that when they see their pension, right, they're like, oh, this is what I'm taking home. Well, that's not the case, right? Because when you think about your pension, guess what? Taxes need to come out. Survivor benefit and all the other benefits, elections that you've made need to come out. So then just knowing that, if you know what your number is, if your pension is, say, $5,000, just know you got to pay taxes, whatever your tax bracket is, and then you got to take all the elections, and then what you have to live off of is what's left over.
Yeah. So this misconception that their pension is not taxed, I think that gets a lot of federal government kind of employees into the wrong space. So just to be clear, your pension do get taxed, right? So we want to make sure that we would clarify that. Hey, why don't we talk about a federal government employee when you retire before 62, there's this benefit that you get, and we happen to believe that that's where most financial advisors miss, right? It's called the Special Retirement Supplement. By the way, they come to us, and some people call it like, Social Security supplement and all that. No, it's not. It's not coming from Social Security. So I want to make that clear, right? But we come across this whereby other financial advisors who don't understand the federal space tend to double count this retirement supplement. In other words, when a federal government employee retires, they're collecting the supplement and then go work somewhere else. Can you talk about that? What's the dynamic in that?
Yeah, I think this is a benefit. If you work for the federal government long enough, you're able to retire. Then you get it's almost like a bridge,
right,
until you're able to collect Social Security, right? So some people are able to get at 57, based on the year that you were born, and it goes all the way up to 62. Now, the problem with that is this: there's earnings tests that go into it, so you can only make a certain amount of money before supplement goes away.
Yeah.
So for those who say, hey, look, I'm going to leave the federal government, I'm going to get another job. Well, you can, but you risk the fact that, hey, you may lose the supplement if you make too much.
Yes. Well, even if you lose it, I get that one, right? Okay? Because the reason why you're losing it, you're making a lot more somewhere else. I get that. But I think where I have issues with the fact that other financial advisors will do a plan for them, planning that, okay, you're going to get your pension. You're also going to get your $70,000 that you're making outside. And on top of that, you're going to get your supplement. That is wrong, because now we know that because of the income that they're making out there, that supplement goes away. So in other words, the numbers that they base off of their retirement is actually wrong. And I think that speaks to more like their knowledge of like the federal benefits, right? So we come across that all the time, right? I think the special retirement supplement is mainly for people that retire before 62. And you feel like, you know what, I'm just tired. I'm just going to retire and then just don't do anything until when I get to 62. Then you can maybe, enjoy all of that, right? But supplement get affected by that. Yeah. All right, good. Outstanding. Now, so when we think about the income piece, we could look at income, say you could take income from your TSP on a monthly basis, or you could find ways how to get income. I happen to believe that given a protected income that you're not going to outlive versus taking money off of your portfolio, I like the protected one better. What do you think?
I agree with you, Mamadou. And one of the things that I talk to people about is, people come in and say, hey, you know what? My concern is I'm going to run out of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't have guaranteed income, then your plan is, I hope I don't, right? Because again, I said it earlier, I don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball, right? Yep. We can't control what the market does. However, if you have guaranteed income coming in, irregardless of the market, whether it goes up or down, you know you're going to get the income coming in. Now, if you don't have that guaranteed income and you're taking money out of the market, well, guess what? If we have a few bad years in the market and you're taking money out, you have a bigger chance of running out of money than if you had a portion set aside to have that income coming in. So we love the fact that I know you'll have the income that you need versus I hope you have the income you need. Yeah. Again, I don't want to hope, I want to know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You make a great point because, at the end of the day, we're telling people, you know what, all these years that you're working as a federal government employee, they rely on their paycheck. It's steady. They know exactly when it's going to come, how much it's going to be, right? It just blows my mind when they go into retirement, they tend to do something different, and I think part of it is because they just love to see their TSP balance actually growing. It's almost like what I joke around saying like eye candy, right? They like looking at that to grow, but what they fail to realize is, well, at some point the market is going to come down. So to make sure that you protect your income from the market loss, I think that's a great thing. So, and then the other thing is, even if you don't do that, but you want to take money out of your portfolio, well, in our business, we call a sequence of return risk, meaning that if you start taking money out and the market start going down, what's the implication on that?
Yeah, so the implication is that, again, more like timing of the market, right? Am I taking the market at a low? So think of it this way, right? Hypothetically, if you take the money out, let's say the market goes down 10%, and then you take 10%. Well, then you've taken inherently 28% out of your portfolio.
Yeah.
The market has to return, let's say 30%, just for you to break even, right?
Yeah.
And so the challenge that we have is that if we have a few bad years of the market and it constantly goes down, let's say for the next 3 years, right? And you're taking money out, boy,
Yeah. Yeah.
a challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be a big challenge because, I remember when we saw this scenario to clients, the sequence of return risk, meaning that if you and I are retiring and then we all have the same amount of money, let's say we all have $500,000 and we're going to retire. But you retire at a time whereby the first 3 years, you're getting money out of your retirement. Let's say you're getting $20,000 every first 3 years. But that first 3 years, the market has a positive return. And then I retire the same $500,000, and then I'm also taking $200,000. But my first 3 years, the market has a negative return. I could run out of money in a few years, and you can still have a lot of money. So that's the power of knowing about the sequence of return risk, and most people tend to miss that, right? Anyway, so when we also talk about income, most people, like I said before, they like their TSP to grow. But a lot of times when we look at that, we see what probably maybe like very aggressive portfolio, because majority of the money is either in the C, S, and I. Well, if when you're close to retirement and you're older, you're 70, and you're taking that you're taking that amount of risk, that could be dangerous.
Absolutely. And we got to think about where are you? Why are you taking the risk, right? Our fundamental belief is that you take enough risk to be able to maintain a certain lifestyle you're going to want to live, right? Don't take more risk than what you really need. And especially if you're in the latter part of your career or close to retirement, there's no need to hit home runs anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, capital preservation should be at the top of your list, right?
Yeah.
And so how do we do that? It's all about planning.
Yeah.
Planning accordingly, because if you take more risk, we have to kind of ask, who's giving you advice? Should you be taking more risk? And if there is a market downturn, what are the impacts of it? And will it affect your current strategy to be able to retire?
Yeah. No, you brought a good point. Like I always tell you analogies when I meet with clients, and I tell them that, look, let's assume that, you are playing a Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl, you have how many million people watching, 2 minutes to go, your team is up 2 touchdowns, 2 minutes to go. And you have the ball, what's going to be the call that you're going to apply? Are you going to throw the ball or are you going to run the ball? Most people say, no, I don't want to take that risk. I'll run the ball and run that clock, right? So, hi, if you're a federal government employee and you see value in this channel, please make sure that you subscribe, because this is where we're going to have a lot of information about your benefits. That way you can make smart choices. So if you have any questions about your benefits, my office, my staff, and my team are ready to answer your questions and be able to guide you on the right path.